The meeting of the Anderson County School District 2 Board of Trustees will please come to order. First item on the agenda is our pledge of allegiance. Do we have some?
Same, let's take care of
Okay.
allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everyone received a copy of the September 9th, 2019 meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? If not, they stand approved as submitted. Tonight, we will not be having recognitions. We will wait till our November meeting. I think we have public participation.
Yes, we had two signed up, but I believe, let's see, one, Mr. Richard Taylor. It would be your turn. Oh, I see, Mr. Taylor.
I don't care what order we
No,
go.
Miss Hunt, you had signed up. This is Valerie Hunt.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I did not realize you.
Good evening. I'm the parent of an 8th grade student at Honey Path Middle School. Last month, I emailed asking each of you to consider the district's policies on teacher conduct and how incidents are monitored and handled. I sincerely thank those of you that responded, and I hope that our situation has created some dialogue to ensure that safety and hiring quality teachers are at the top of our agenda in this district. When he was younger, I couldn't imagine leaving this district and felt that we were right where we needed to be. Unfortunately, that is no longer the case. Overuse of Chromebooks, iReady, lack of compassion, and discipline issues are concerns that keep me awake at night. I heard the numbers last month about attendance being down in some grade levels. Lakes and Bridges and Belton Prep Academy probably had a great impact on our district, as they can offer smaller class sizes and more personalized instruction. If there were middle school or high school alternative options, we would not hesitate to move our child. My second reason for speaking tonight is to offer some information on dyslexia. October is Dyslexia Awareness Month. Dyslexia affects 1 in 5 students. It's the most common of all learning disabilities, and up to 75 to 80% of children receiving special education services because of reading are dyslexic. We've been trying for years to get our district to adopt a program to provide a multisensory approach to reading that will help dyslexic learners make gains. It was encouraging to hear at the last board meeting that we are finally taking those strides to ensure that the upcoming classes will receive the instruction that they need. It would be amazing if we could find some options for the middle and high school students who didn't have the opportunity to bridge that gap. And my third hope is that this district will someday be trained on mental health. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for people ages 10 to 24. 4 out of 5 students who attempt suicide give clear warning signs prior to this attempt. The personnel incident that we have been dealing with in our home has shed light on the fact that the staff does not understand anxiety. I have shared resources with the principal, a member of special services, and Dr. Rosenberger in hopes that some professional development will likely take place. While parents have the ultimate responsibility on our child's health and well-being, the school also plays a major role. If students come from a home where they don't feel safe, they're going to try to find a teacher or a staff member to trust and confide in. If we have teachers that intimidate and belittle students, they may feel that they have nowhere to turn. Having information on the warning signs of mental illness, active listening skills, and a positive relationship with students could save one life. I share all of this in hopes that one day, every child will have access to the resources to address their individual needs, and that we will have a school where they're able to learn in a safe and positive environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Taylor.
I have 3 points I want to bring out tonight, please. First one's board policy. Board policy should be followed, not ignored or abused. I believe each of you had to take an oath to follow them once elected. I commend the times that a board member will try to stop a fellow board member from going against board policy. But some of you simply ignore it and continue forward, choosing your own personal agenda instead of following the policy you swore to follow. And have you thought of the example you're setting for the students? What you're telling them is it doesn't matter about the rules in the school or elsewhere, but they're following just your example. The second one is your job as a board member. I believe your job as a board member is to present the people in District 2. Back in May, some of you chose not to do so. Only you know the reason. The people in the community were here to voice their opinion. No one was turned away. However, you turned your back on us. If you had done what your constituents wanted, we would not be in this mess we're in now. We have lost good teachers that were wanting to come to our district, but changed their minds due to the mess of the board. Look at the tax dollars being spent because the board voted 3-3 not to get legal advice about Mr. Shirley's rescinding his resignation. Lastly, and most important, why are you serving? I have talked to many people on different boards and commissions. One gentleman on another education board told me this statement. Please pay attention to it. It's very important. If a school board member doesn't put the students first and teachers second, they have no business serving on the board. I want to repeat that. If a school board member doesn't put the students first and teachers second, they have no business serving on a school board. I hope each of you, no matter how many times you've served on the school board, will please think hard about this over the next week. And if your goal is not for the best interest of our children and teachers, please consider stepping down. I personally will look up to you for having the courage to do the right thing for our district. In other words, are you really helping District 2 students and teachers and allowing our superintendent to do his best job, or have you become a stumbling block in our district? Thank you for your time, and thank you for thinking about this last week. And I will give a copy to Ms. McDowell and you all too. And lastly, I'm sorry about your mother.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Our next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We'll have our monthly financial report.
As you can see, our revenues are almost exactly the same as they were this time last year. Our revenues that we've collected so far are 15.5% of our budget. Our expenses are a little bit less than they were this time last year. We've spent 18.8% of the budget so far this year. Then if you'll scroll down to page 14, you can see at the end of September we had $6.6 million on hand in our various accounts. And on page 17, it shows that in comparison to the last 2 fiscal years, which is a little bit higher. Page 18 shows our POs, our purchase orders for the month of September. The majority of the state and local grant spending was our CATE spending, our career and technology education money. Our sales tax, the majority of it was some instruments for the middle schools and some Piedmont Natural Gas work that we had to do for the greenhouses to get ready to be on at the middle schools. And then our general fund balance, we spent the majority of it on library books, and then we bought a vaping detection system for Belton Middle School. Page 27 shows our pupil activity for the month of August. We started the month with $425,000 and we ended the month with $492,000, mostly because of fees and just the influx of money that we get this school year. Page 28 shows our energy analysis for the month of September. We're a little bit higher than September of 2018. I think it's because it was so much hotter. And we're also still working on the water meter at Honeycomb Middle. We got a credit for 1 month in October, and we're still working on getting a credit for the 2nd month.
That's all. Thank you. Do you have any questions for Mrs. Cornell? Thank you very much. All right, let's see.
Mr. Cooley,
Yes?
there are 2 other things on the consent agenda.
Yes, sir, I see that. You will talk about decreased enrollment.
And we mentioned that last week, I believe.
I asked for that to be put on the agenda because we were told that our last board meeting or earlier board meeting that our student enrollment was down by 130 plus students. I asked Ms. Cornell if she would determine what that financially meant to our district to lose this amount of students. I know that the student-based cost is currently almost $2,500, so my estimate of loss to the district would have been about $325,000, which you concurred. Earlier in the year, we were also told that there would be $100,000, which would need to come from the fund balance to help with a 4% salary increase for teachers. So both of those amounts total about $725,000 of non-reoccurring monies. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So what my question would be, what is our plan to replenish these monies or to restore the diminished fund balance due to these losses that we will have incurred throughout the school year?
My hope is that our loss based on our loss of students won't be quite as much because we get base student costs, but then each student has a weighted pupil unit based on their classification. So I have no way of knowing what classification the students we lost, where they stood. So I'm hoping that maybe there will be a 1.0 instead of a 1.74 that would give us more money. So I'm hoping that it won't be as big as we think it might be because of that. Going into this year, we carried some at-risk money and some aid-to-district money over from last year because we knew we were going to be in the hole to start off with. So we've got that. I have been stressing, and the principals can attest to this, spending, we need to watch our spending closely. You know, anything extra we don't need to get. Dr. Rosenberger has some plans for next year, so we're just going to do the best we can.
of our district over the last 5 years so that we can see enrollment over the last consecutive 5 years to look at the decrease in enrollment. So I think that's important for us to know. So
I can do that.
Can you also add how many jobs we've lost over those many years? Or can you get that conversion also? Anderson
From
County.
county, I can reach out to him.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
I would just add on, we have moved the field trip request up to part of the consent agenda as opposed to down in the action items. Mr. Cooley and I visited about that. We do have one field trip, and it is actually our FFA and part of Ag will be attending the national contest in Indianapolis, Indiana, and that will be on the October 29th through Friday, November 1st. Mr. Lee's here. They'll be taking about 20 students, I believe. So, they usually come back winners, so we'll expect nothing less.
Yes, sir.
And that would complete our consent agenda.
Okay, thank you.
And we-
Make a motion, we approve that.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed? Thank you. Unanimously. All right. Dr. Rosenberg, test score presentation.
And we're going to start off with Ms. Price, using some test scores, and then we'll do some of our principal presentations.
So I'm going to give you a district overview of our test scores, and we have principals that will speak about the individual school level. And just to remind you what we're graded on with our accountability, I went over this last year, but I'm just going to briefly summarize it. For elementary and middle school, it's broken down 80% with academic and 20% with school quality and student success. So achievement is 40 points, growth is 40 points. The state tells us that growth is just as important as achievement. Then we have preparing for success, that's science and social studies. Each is worth 5 points. And then the survey at the end of the year, the engagement survey is worth 10 points. So it's 100 points total that we're dealing with. And then the high school's a little bit different. 60 points is academic and 40 points is school quality and student success. Let me go back. So achievement for BHP was 30 points. Graduation rate is the same, 30 points. Preparing for success, science and social studies is 5 points each. College and career readiness is almost as high with 25 points, and then the survey is 5 points. So that's how the State Department determines what rating we get at the end of the year on our report card. And we were very excited. We had some good growth last year. BHP went from good to excellent, so we were super excited about that. Belton Middle School's average. Honeypath Middle School went from average to good, very exciting. Belton Elementary also went from average to good. Honeypath Elementary is at average, and Wright is also at average. You can see the gains on the overall numbers here. BHP had a solid 10-point gain, which is tremendous. Belton Middle School had a 5-point gain, which is good. Then Honeypath Middle just blew every middle school out of the water with their growth. They had a 15-point gain, and I think Honeypath Middle had more growth or more change in rankings than any other middle school in South Carolina. So that's a tremendous something we need to be proud of. Belton Elementary had a 6-point increase, and then we had some decreases at Honeypath Elementary and Wright, very slight decreases. Went about 2.5-point decrease at Honeypath Elementary, and Wright had a 1.5-point decrease. So pretty much stayed close to the same with both of those. And these are the scores that they got in each area of the report card that I just went over. And this is last year. So I want you to look and see how many below averages we had. Anything below an average. It goes from excellent to good to average to below average and unsatisfactory. So we had an unsatisfactory here, below average here, unsatisfactory here, another below average there. So we had a total of 4 below averages last year. And then we're very pleased this year to only have just one category that was below average, and that was unsatisfactory for growth at Wright. So that's huge for our district. We're very pleased about that. Not many districts can say that. And with Wright, as you can see, their achievement is very high. And once you have that high achievement, it's hard to continue to grow those students. However, there are schools out there that are doing that. So we have charged Kim. She's going to make it happen. We're definitely going, no pressure. We're definitely going to increase that next year and make some changes there. But overall, again, we're very excited about the increases that we've had on the report card. Okay, I know this is hard for you, but I believe you got a copy of this. But I'm just going to kind of summarize the increases that we've had this year. With ELA, I'll start. Last year from this year, third grade ELA had a 7.1 percentage point gain. And math had a 9.7 percentage point gain. ELA in fourth grade, anything in green means positive points. Anything red, we lost some. Fourth grade ELA, 9.8% gain. And fourth grade math, 6.4. Fifth grade across the board, we did not show improvement. And that has been a concern. And I'll tell you a few things that we're doing to address that. Going back to fifth grade, we had a 7.7% loss in ELA and a 4.4 percentage point loss in math. In grade 6 was phenomenal. We had a 15.9 percentage point gain in ELA and an 18 percentage point gain in math. So they are really rocking and rolling. Seventh grade, we actually had 4, in our small district, 4 core content teachers out for over 45 days. So having that many core content teachers out, this was a grade level I was very concerned with. They actually had a little increase, 2.1 in the ELA, but then had a 1.0 drop. I had predicted with having those core content teachers out that we may have dropped a little bit more, so I was pleased with that. Of course, we want to see some higher gains next year, or this year. 8th grade, we had an 8.8 percentage point gain, and in math, a 12.2 percentage point gain. So we're celebrating all together in ELA is a 36 percentage point gain, and in math, 40.9. So I think we need to give our teachers, and students, and coaches, and principals a round of applause for their hard work. That's absolutely excellent to have that much growth in 1 year. In science, we had a 1.7 percentage point gain in 4th grade, in 6th grade 15.4, and in 8th grade 10.4 from the previous year. In social studies, again 5th grade, we had a drop, 6.3, and then in 7th grade we had a 0.5 percentage point drop from the previous year. So altogether, science had a 27.5 percentage point increase. Goodness gracious, if I just get close, it moves. And then social studies, we had a loss, a 6.8 percentage point increase. Last year was our last year to have social studies testing. But that does not mean that we need to drop the ball in social studies and history, because it is very important. And my high school and middle school history teachers will tell you to not drop the ball with that. So we have new social studies standards out, and we're busy digging into those. EOCs. So English 1. First year we ever had TDAs in English 1. So we did have a little bit of drop, 75.7 to 65.2. I don't know if that's the reason why we had a drop. That's my best estimate. Is Mr. McCullen here? Would you agree with that? Did TDAs play a part?
It played a part. I think our teachers did a good job of focusing on TDAs. And I got, in the freshman academy, 2 of the best English teachers we got in there. So other than that, you don't get much feedback from the state as to what areas you dropped in. And that's the frustrating thing with EOCs.
And then Belton Middle,
Well, excuse me, wasn't there a larger number than usual that took the end of course at the middle school last year?
Yeah, if you compare, put those in there, it does, of course, jump the district's rating in that area quite a bit.
and so Belton Middle School stayed close to the same. They had 100% to 95, and then Honey Path went up from 98 to 100. So altogether, we still had a drop, 84 to 73.8. So we're hoping to improve that this year. Algebra is killing us. So algebra, very pleased with Honey Path Middle again. They went from a 67 to a 93. Fabulous with Algebra 1 scores. Belton Middle School improved, 92 to 96. BHP improved, but not enough. So we're at 33 and now we're at 36%. So altogether as a district we improved, but it's not like we're going to. We have jam-up teachers. In fact, this is their first year last year teaching Algebra 1 at the high school. And so we brought in some consultant to provide professional development this year in algebra to see kind of what's going on, because we felt for sure those scores would go up this year. They loved her, thought she was wonderful, so I'm going to end up bringing her back more times throughout the year to provide them and look at their assessments to see if the rigor is there or if any changes need to be made. But that is a concern. Then let me explain biology. Biology, in the years past, we had honor students taking biology in 9th grade. All other students took biology in 10th grade. So we got rid of physical science, which means all students from this point forward will take biology in 9th grade. So this number really reflects one set of honor students plus your 10th grade non-honor students and your 9th grade non-honor students. So it's two separate non-honor classes that took the test, so we knew we were going to take a little bit of a hit on it this year, and that's why that's reflected in the biology test score. But that should definitely come up this year. And then U.S. history, we did have a little drop in U.S. history, but last year was the highest, I think, the highest ever score in U.S. history that we've ever had. Mr. McCall said normally we're in the 70s, and we were at 69.7, and we also have two jam-up teachers that teach U.S. history, because they're in here right now. They're great. And then, how do we compare to the state? We're excited. And when I go over English 1, Algebra 1, goodness gracious. Okay, English 1, Algebra 1, Biology, and U.S. History. This is what's on the report card. So the report card only looks at C and higher. So these scores are a little bit different than what you've got on your test scores. So district and ELA, 3rd through 8th grade, we were 0.3 points away from scoring where the state was, state average, which is not, we don't like that. Math, we were well above, 3 points above. English 1, we were 10 points above. Algebra, we were even 10 points above. Science, we were, gosh, how many is that? 4 points above. Social studies, we were a 10th of a point away from the state. Biology, 5 points above. And U.S. history, a point above. Couple of things that we're doing to address those areas of need and growth, and how, even though we've made this huge growth this year, what is our plan to sustain it? So we've got to continue growing and moving our teachers and students. So a couple of things we have in place now are coaching cycles, and that's where our coaches come in and plan with the teachers, observe them, give them feedback from the start of unit to the finish of the unit. And we are starting that focus on those areas of deficit. So 5th grade and 7th grade are huge areas of focus with our coaching cycles, and that also goes along with our principal goals. They wrote goals based on those areas. We also have professional development all throughout the year. In fact, I think we have so much it may be a little bit overwhelming. And then something I want to talk to you about, which is new that we're wanting to roll out, is professional learning communities. And you may say, this is nothing new, we've had this in our district for years, but it may not have been used in the most effective or efficient way. So I had the opportunity to take the majority of our principals and one assistant principal to have training with Solution Tree and professional learning opportunities. And instead of grade level meetings where you're planning field trips or let's work on their lesson plans together. This is actually focusing on the learning that's taking place, not the teaching. So it's looking at a lot of student data. What do we want our students to know? How do we know when they know it? What do we do if they don't know it? And what do we do if they already know it? And so basically those 4 questions, and so it's data-rich conversations and collaborations that our teachers will be having that I think is going to make a huge impact. It will continue to carry us to where we want our students and teachers to be. So that's our plan moving forward, a few of the things we're doing. Last thing I wanted to chat with you about is tomorrow night, we're super excited. I want to invite you to our movie night for the big read. This is our middle school book, City of Ember. And this is one of my favorite things we've ever done is when we have an elementary movie night on the football field, and we invited all of the students in elementary schools and families to have an outdoor movie. So we're going to try it with middle school students. So cross your fingers that goes well, and it's supposed to rain. So if it rains, our backup will be the gym, and if everybody can't fit the gym, we'll open up the auditorium. So we do have a backup plan, but it's just so much more fun under the stars to watch a movie together. And we have concessions, so it's going to be like a real movie. We would love for you all to come. Okay, do y'all have any questions for me? Yes, ma'am.
I understand there were some testing violations reported from the state. I understand VHP didn't have any, but every other school had 1, and then Belton Elementary had 9. What are you going to do to address those for the future? Because I know in the past we have not had a lot of problems. And can you explain what a testing violation would be?
So I'm not the testing coordinator, that's Lana Major, but we can certainly have her come next month and present on that. I'm sorry, that's not my world.
I've had some questions.
Yes, ma'am.
If I look at scores over time,
Mhm.
ELA has been below the state standard for 3 consecutive years.
Mhm.
And in 2016, they were only like 4/10 above the state standard, and then they were minus 3.5 and minus 2.6, and then minus 0.3 this year. So, what is wrong, and how do we correct it?
I'm glad you asked that. We use a balanced literacy approach to teaching, and it's the right thing to do. And it's basically authentic learning. We are basing our instruction on student needs, what their deficits are in reading, or different skills, or different standards. However, and that's pretty much what everyone across the state uses. There's also an issue across the state with phonics. Phonics are low across the state. Students are struggling to read. And now some of the research is coming back saying that maybe balanced literacy may not be as strong in phonics as we need it to be. And I would say that that's our weakness with phonics. And so that's why 2 years ago we implemented Orton Gillingham. This is our 2nd year with it. And we have all of our teachers except for maybe 5, possibly 5, trained in that explicit phonics instruction with Orton Gillingham. And of course we can talk to our principals, but looking at the data, it looks like that has made an improvement. So we're hoping that, I know I talked with the Greenville County friend this weekend, and they are starting just implementing a brand new phonics curriculum this year. It's not Orton Gillingham, it's a different curriculum. But that's something common that's across the state. So I feel like that's going to make, at least in our district, that was a weakness that we've addressed.
I do have a couple more things, and honestly, I want to say to start with, I'm grateful for improvements.
Thank you.
So I applaud the
Appreciate that.
district. I applaud the district for improving. However, I still have concerns with test scores because even the improvements that you see still represent scores that are below the test, below the state average in several areas. So I'm deeply troubled by what's happening in 7th and 8th grade particularly. with ELA and math being below the average. When I look at, we generally historically over time compared ourselves with Anderson District 1, and I think we have a similar situation today to Anderson District 4. So when I look at ELA in those three districts, Anderson 1, 2, and 4, I see that we are scoring significantly lower than Anderson 1 and 4 in ELA. Overall, we have a 45.1 and they have a 59.7 and 59.5, which represents a 14% higher in ELA than our district. And also in math, we have an average of 45.3, where Anderson 1 is 64.5 and Anderson 4 is 61.7, which is still significantly lower than those two districts. I guess my question would be, have you spoken with those two districts to see what they might be doing differently? Have you studied other districts across the state who have significantly higher scores than us in specific content areas, and talk with them about teaching strategies, curriculum, staff development, and other things that might be contributing to scores that are so significantly higher than ours? I know Anderson 4 had, they were 18.7 points higher in social studies than we were. So though I am proud of the gain and I hope that that trend will continue to be an upward trend, I'm still overwhelmed, I guess, at the deficit that I see in Anderson District 2.
And I'm looking just currently at third grade ELA, and I see Belton and Honeybath are above Pendleton.
Now, I'm talking overall. I'm
Okay.
talking district-wide.
District-wide.
Yes.
Okay, so it's hard to compare us district-wide to Anderson 1. It's better to compare us to Palmetto, because we're very similar to the demographics that Palmetto is. So I feel like we did very well compared to Palmetto Elementary and Palmetto High School. We knocked the socks off of them. Palmetto Middle did better than we did, if I remember correctly. I'm not looking through this whole thing. But I feel like they did do much better than us, and we know at the middle school level we have some increases we need to make. But as far as Pendleton and Palmetto, just in the elementary schools, I know we did better. Honestly, off the top of my head, can't think about Pendleton, how the middle school or high school did. But I will say, actually last year, we had 2 teachers from Pendleton that actually come and speak at our instructional fair. And the one thing that they shared with our teachers, they were wonderful, but what they shared with our teachers is, our students are Clemson professors' children. Our students are Southern Wesleyan professors' kids. That's who we teach. So we're like, well, that's a little bit different from what we are. And I don't know specifically what school they taught at, because I'll have to go back and look. But I do, to answer your question, do mention very close to several people in Greenville County in Anderson 1. I talked to Laurie now, thankfully she's in Anderson 4. And I asked Laurie the other day, actually, what's Anderson 4 doing that we're not? What can they do, what are they doing better that we would need to implement in our district? Because I want to know. I believe in stealing. They're not.
And I just have one more thing that I want to add, and I'm going to hand out a chart to the board members, and I'd like for you also to look at this chart. I'd like for you to look at this chart and just respond. I looked at the rankings in the state and the ranked scores in the state, and although we improved a little tiny bit in the ranked score from a 0.582 to a 0.592, it didn't move us to a different place in the state. We're still 20th in the state. So if I'm looking at those ranked scores, I see District 1 and District 3 and District 4 as a .79, a .75, and a .79. But if you look across at Anderson District 2, we have remained 20th, 20th, and 21st in the state over the last 3 years. And it seems that we are stuck at .59, .59, .58, .58. And so I'm looking and I see other districts that are scoring .20 higher than us. So just your thoughts on that.
Well, I want to be number one, always. But I do know it's not for a lack of effort on anyone's part.
I'm not saying it's not a lack of effort. What I am saying is, where do we zero in on what is wrong and what we can do differently that might help? That's not a comfortable place for me. We're not used to being there, and it's not a comfortable place for me. And I just feel like we're stuck in a trend, and that we've got to figure it out.
And I think, of course, this is just one picture of what the state's looking at. You know, the state tells us that growth is just as important. And if you remember last year, our students are coming to us, only 20% to 30% of our students are coming to us in kindergarten ready to learn kindergarten material. So I don't believe in excuses, but it is what it is. Our kids are not coming to us prepared to learn. So our teachers are having to backtrack from day one to catch those children up on the skills, pre-kindergarten skills they need to know before they can ever start on that kindergarten curriculum. And then it just rolls on through. They do the best they can to catch those students up. And again, we are far below Anderson's 3 and 4 and 5 in kindergarten readiness. So it may, I don't know if that's a factor or not, but I know we are the top quartile of all districts in South Carolina. Not a bad place to be, but of course I would love to be in the top 10. So what I mentioned, what we're doing is we're focusing on those, just the last slide I had, PLCs. I do think that that's going to make a huge difference in the conversations our teachers have with one another. We're focusing on coaching cycles with those individual teachers that need it, because we have a small district. So if you have one teacher that may not have had an effective year, it brings your whole grade level down. Even though the other ones may have done well, one teacher makes an impact. So we're focusing our principal goals on those as well as our coaching cycles. And I feel like that's going to make a difference coupled with our professional development. Any other questions?
I had a couple, Carol.
Yes.
Earlier in your conversation, you had said that you were not the testing coordinator, that we would have to ask Lana that question. Do you mind telling me what is your role with curriculum and instruction?
Sure. So I work closely with looking at iReady data with our teachers and our coaches. Mostly I work with principals and teachers on that. I work closely with the coaches. We meet every other week, or usually it's every other week. We talk about what's going on in the schools, how are these coaching cycles going, what are your goals, how's our student data looking, any concerns that they may have. I work with teachers on creating standard special report cards in K-2. I've worked with coaches and teachers on professional development. We do our big instructional fair that's coming up in January, rolling out. We have math, PD, ELA PD, really about every teacher's getting it 5 times this year during the school year, so we do a lot of professional development. We look at, is there any other needs that we have in our district? I know I worked with Lindsay on Fort Gillingham. What else do I do? We look at observations with principals. I make sure that they're getting their observational goals in, and they're giving the teacher the feedback that they need. If teachers have concerns, if principals have concerns with teachers, I work with them on that instructional, not the personnel, that would be Mr. McCall, but the instructional component of that. It just kind of goes on and on.
Okay. How do you stay abreast of current information being shared from the state level regarding curriculum instruction? Who gets that? Do you?
It's a mixture. So I get anything that goes to the instructional roundtable. Ms. Major gets anything that goes to early learning, literacy, like Read to Succeed. She deals with instructional programming. Ms. Stewart gets anything that deals with special education. Ms. Crawford's get anything that deals with MTSS. Our coaches go to, they have monthly content area meetings that they go to and bring back the information for everyone to share.
And so you go to meetings that have to do with curriculum instruction?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What are some of the major initiatives that you're leading this year that have the greatest potential to impact student achievement?
Okay, well, definitely what I just went over with the professional development. I think that's, it's what we needed this year. They're looking at our curriculum maps to see if we need to make any adjustments with curriculum maps. And then they're giving the teacher, they're going through units and planning instruction with the teachers. Again, I work closely with the coaches in providing professional development with their teachers or the coaching cycles. So that's going to make a big improvement. And again, with principal and their goals. And support that they need. If they see an area, that they're welcome to come and tell me, and we can work something through together. And then, big initiative we hope to roll out in January is of any piece of that PLC that's going to be so important.
Thank you. I did want to ask one more question, and that will be it. In last week's News Chronicle, you had stated that Anderson District 2 was the top-ranked district in high school in Anderson County for college and career readiness with their graduates. I have looked for that on the website. I did not see it.
Okay, so I can tell you again. You can go to the State Department website, click on report cards for 2019, and then there's a link, data for researchers, and it is on that Excel sheet.
So it's easier for
It is very easy, yes. And I can even send it to you if you like. To make
Okay,
it
that-
easier for you.
Yes, ma'am, that would be
Sure.
nice. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Dr. Roosevelt, what is your role with curriculum instruction?
My job is to make sure that we're focusing on the right path where we're supposed to be going. We've heard a lot about achievement today, and I think that's important. The state's not asking about strictly achievement. The state's making sure that we have a balanced growth with achievement and growth. And I think that's where we have to continue making sure our focus. The state is also interested in making sure we're hitting the profile of the high school graduate. And that profile includes being college and career ready. You just mentioned that from the news article, the top students are the top school as far as being college and career ready. That's where we should be focused with. Are we preparing our kids for the next step? We have 94.7% of our college are moving to the next level in 2-year, 4-year school, military, or gainful employment. That's the second highest in the county. Well, we may not be the highest as far as achievement, but our goal is making sure our kids are ready to take the next step. We are second highest in the county for making sure our students are, when they go to college, they're passing their classes. We're second highest in the county. Now, we can sit there and say, well, they didn't score very well on some of their tests here. I get that. But our kids are moving forward and being prepared for the next level. I think that's our true measurement. That's my focus, to make sure we are ready. I think we're going in the right direction.
Dr. Barnes.
Okay. I do appreciate you getting together the chart, going over all the state assessments that Dr. Rosenberg sent out to us a couple of weeks ago.
That's not me. I don't do that.
Whoever.
But I will pass along the things.
We had asked for the overall passing rate for all state tests beginning in 2014 onward. Now, my concern is, in comparison, comparing where we were in 2014 to where we are now. One comment is saying it's new standards. I don't think that's a valid excuse. New standards might account for a drop for the first year, but after that, you should see upward movement if the teachers were teaching with new standards. Now, in 2014, we had 81% of our students meet the state standards. Over the years, those scores dropped to 49.7% meeting the standards last year. Now, on a positive thing, this year, the scores did go up 2.3%, and that's wonderful. But now that the data's in and you've had time to study the data, what are you going to do differently to continue to work on increasing the achievement in the district? Because frankly, 2.3% isn't that big a jump, considering we went from 81 down to 49.7.
And I think the chart you're looking at, we've never used that chart before, so I don't know why we're looking at it that way, but that includes EOC on that. And like I said, there's a bit of a difference in EOC, especially with biology. But one thing I want to remind you of what I went over last year, because we keep going back to 2014, and that is by far the best year our district has ever had in SE on testing. But the reason I believe that is because if you look at this year, that was the very last year for pass testing. At that time, we were using benchmark testing. Pass and benchmark is rote recall information. So with pass and benchmark, again, Anderson 1, 3, 4, and 5, we keep comparing ourselves to them, but they were using MAP for 13, 11, 15, and 14 years. Actually, we can add a number to that because I didn't increase this from last year. So MAP is a college and career type of assessment. They were already preparing their kids for that move to South Carolina, to Common Core, South Carolina Ready Standards. We kept the benchmark. So yes, we did extremely well that year. All the other districts were really focused on moving their kids to meet these college and career readiness standards. We did not have an assessment to do that. So that really hurt our district and put us at a disadvantage. Their teachers and their students had years ahead of us in assessing and looking at that type of data, which we did not have. Now, we keep going back to 2014, but I can pull up, in fact, I think I have that. If we want, we can go back 10 years to 2018, and we were below average, at risk, average, average, at risk, below average.
Is there a way
On
to
report
increase,
cards.
because I can't see any of that.
I'll be glad to send it to you. So, again, but with your question, what are we doing to improve? We're in a constant state of continuous improvement. What can we do better and better? What's working? What's not working? What do we need to throw out? Or what do we need to add? It's a constant conversation that I have with coaches and principals.
I do want to make one comment to that.
Sure.
And that is, I know the year after we finished with PASS in ELA and math, we moved to Aspire. And Aspire was supposed to be very much aligned with Common Core, which
Yes.
is very similar to what we're doing now with college and career readiness. So at that point, when we moved from the 81% to Aspire, I think there were, we had close to 70% of our students who met the state standards with that. I think it was like 68%.
With Aspire, we had a huge drop.
Yeah, but it was still higher than what it was this year and last year. That's my point. So, you know, I want to say, I don't mean to be argumentative, and I'm not trying to be argumentative, but when you keep going back to the fact that we had benchmark and everybody else had math and they were years ahead of the district, that's just not,
That's right there, we call it.
yeah, but it's just, it's an unfair statement, I believe.
I guess the reason, and I appreciate that, but I guess the reason why I keep going right back is because you keep comparing us to that year.
Well, but I'm just saying, even when we moved past the benchmark test that our district did, which I know that you didn't like, and that's okay, but even when we moved past that, and we got to testing with the Common Core, well, we don't do Common Core, but with college and career readiness, we scored much, much higher on those tests, even though, yes, there was a significant drop. but we were still much, much higher on that test, which was a very, very rigorous test, than we were last year at 49% and this year at 52%. I don't mean to argue, that's not my heart. It's just making a point that the test scores, once again, though I'm very, very grateful for improvement, I still think we have a long ways to go.
And I wouldn't, and I certainly wouldn't argue with that. We're always going to improve. That's our goal.
Okay,
And then it changed again the next year, right?
Yes, we'll change from ACT Inspire to, yes, SE Ready.
do you have kind of a goal for what you're going to shoot for this year? In other words, if I were to ask you for a desired numerical gain for 2019-20, this year we went up a little over 2%.
Well, again, go ahead, I'm sorry.
What's your numerical dream goal?
Well, I would love for 80% of our students to all be meeting standards, period. We're not there yet, but we will be one day. And I will say, you keep going back to the 2% growth, again, that's never what our district has looked at it that way. Our district has always, even when I was a teacher in this district, looked at growth on this same chart. So that's where we see this growth, 36 percentage points growth and 40.9 percentage points growth. So I think we need to be careful when we're using that 2 point. We've not looked at that ever before. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
there are 82 districts, if I'm not mistaken, or 81 in the state now. Which is it, 82?
83.
83 now. And we're number 20, I'm not griping about that. I'd like to be number 10 or whatever, but when I look at what the socioeconomic of my area, and I grew up here, so I can say what I want to about my area. But if I were looking for somewhere to move, I can assure you, even with the good schools we have, there's nothing else to offer me in the Belton-Honea Pass area. There's no infrastructure provided by either town to bring people in, and jobs have left us. So I think we do very well. I go into schools in District 1 to supervise students, and I can assure you, I look at the type of student there and the parents who are coming in, and I'm thinking, our students do well for some of the home lives they come from, because those students are coming from very affluent homes, especially in the Powdersville area. And I'm very happy, like I said, I want more growth, of course, but most of us are just average American citizens, and that's what keeps America going, is the average American citizen. It's not the brightest, it's not the slowest student, but it's the average American who keeps this country going. And our test scores are in the average right now. I want them higher, of course. I'm not saying I don't. But I'm also proud of what we've accomplished and what we're going to accomplish this year.
Thank you.
One question, Ms. Knight, on the charts you gave us, which Greenwood district is that? Is that 52? You put Greenwood, but there's 3 districts in Greenwood. I assume that's 52.
I suppose, I don't know, honestly, Greenwood, I don't know. I can look it up.
I would imagine it's 52, that's 96. Their schools are usually.
I'll look to compare those that were closest to us. Abbeville is 6th in the state, Greenville's 13th, Pickens is 15th, and Greenwood is 17th. And I just looked to compare where I looked specifically to see what their ranked scores were, because ours were in the 0.5s, and all of those were 0.6 and 0.7, so that was my goal.
And again, that's just test scores, not the growth and career readiness, is that correct?
But it's still a measure. It's
One
still a
of the
measure.
measures.
Ms. Price, I think we have our Belton Elementary.
Before we begin, I was going to address Dr. Barnes's question. We did have some testing violations. All of them were minor things, like a teacher got back in the classroom and realized there were a couple of sheets of scratch work still on the table. That's a testing violation that a lot of places wouldn't report, but my testing coordinator is going to report anything that's even close to not following it. Another one, a teacher got back and realized she had left a testing ticket on her table. And they were all minor things that, like I said, a lot of places wouldn't even report, but we're going to report it and so that we're above board with everything. But nothing was a major violation.
All right. Okay, so last year in 2018, in our presentation, we talked about a new initiative that we're starting. Last year, we started a school-wide initiative called Class Dojo. One of the reasons we did that was just simply to increase parent involvement in our kids' education. We know how nobody knows a child better than the parent. And anything we can do to get them involved in that. So some of the things that came through that was so they can see pictures and videos of their kids in the classroom. Have access to newsletters, study guides, and homework tips. Sometimes papers don't always make it home, and so teachers will put a PDF version up online so people can simply get it. Also, increased parent and teacher interaction. We live in a digital age, and so sometimes you're not able to return phone calls because of work schedules or different things from parents. So there's an option in there where you can send a message back and forth from teachers to parents, and then also help parents keep track of student behavior. So students earn points or lose points based on student behavior. They can instantly see how their students do in the classroom, no matter where they're at. So just wanted to kind of share where we came from after our first year of implementation. Messages sent home from the parents or from the teacher to the parent was 13,740 messages. That's one-sided. That's not the parent sending back. That's just from the teacher to the parent, which is phenomenal. We were able to share almost 3,000 pictures and videos with our parents. An awesome way, again, lots of times we have parents who would love to come in, but I have to work and just not able to see what's going on in our classroom. But just one way we can involve them in the education. We were able to give over 200,000 points to students for positive behavior, things that they did that we just said, hey, you did exactly what you're supposed to do. Thank you for doing that that way. And as a positive feedback percentage as a school, we hit 89%. In previous years, we've always had the PBIS and also house celebrations, which is adopted from the Ron Clark Academy out of Atlanta, Georgia, and analyzed data to target areas for improvement. That was through teacher-parent surveys, monthly discipline data from Review 360, feedback from quarterly celebrations. We always have bullying prevention programs. But last year, we took it a step further to a year-long bullying prevention program. Also, many management PDs during faculty meetings based on the Review 360 data. So as we saw needs throughout the year, we would give teachers professional development on that and how to address those needs. And then also, we did conflict resolution and pause lessons. There's a big misinterpretation of bullying and conflict. And conflict is a thing that you're going to have, wherever you're at, work environment and everything. And so myself, Ms. Doak, and Ms. Hedrick go into the classroom and teach a lesson to those students during our intervention time. Just simply on how to deal with conflict. How do you work that out? What's the process look like? That's what we did in the years past, last year. And as a result of this and other things, we had a 36% decrease in school referrals over the last 3 years. And so really excited about the direction we're going, what our teachers are implementing in the classroom. Dealing with conflict has been tremendous. So this year, we're continuing everything that we're doing and then trying to take it a step further, continuing to decrease the amount of referrals in our school, increase positive behavior in our school, ultimately so that teachers can teach and do what they're called to do. And one of the things we've already done this year, on top of everything we're planning to do this year, is revised our school-wide expectations and directly taught in common areas. So in other words, we got together with our faculty and said, what does it need to look like in the restrooms? What does it need to look like on the playground? What does it need to look like in our hallways? As a school, we came up together and reviewed all those things so we can have a common expectation throughout our school. And then also focused behavior interventions on repeat offenders. One of the things the state's doing now is through MTSS and basically focusing in on intervention. And we want to do the same thing with our behavior. So I know I'm on a committee, one of the superintendent goals with Mr. McCall, and just to try to, what do we do with students when they receive out-of-school suspension? What do we do with these repeat offenders? How do we gauge that? And we noticed, just looking at our first meeting, just how some of the students are pulled up from the middle school, or some of the students that I dealt with, and I taught with and met with those parents, and just how it's you could probably see the trend elementary, middle, and high school. And what we're truly doing to change the behavior. I know if a student can't read, we teach them how to read. We give them strategies. We give them interventions. The same should be true with behavior. So as a school, that's one area that we're trying to focus on to decrease our referrals and allow teachers more time to teach in the classroom.
And Mr. Fowler mentioned NTSS. Last year, we just kind of dipped into NTSS. That is something that we're working through a 3-year implementation process through in the state of South Carolina. Through that process, I shared with Dr. Rosenberg earlier, one of my favorite parts of that process is it's not just focusing on who needs intervention. It's focusing on that, but it's also looking at the system as a whole. Where have we got gaps in our curriculum that we need to improve on? And when we did that last year, it became very obvious that phonics was a need. It's a need across the state. I was very fortunate to already have some Orton Gillingham trained teachers. So we use those teachers both in the classroom and through intervention to pour Orton Gillingham onto them to reduce some of that phonics issue. It's barely even an issue in 5th grade this year. It's much less of an issue in 4th grade. Still a big issue in 3rd grade. That is something that Marshall Primary knows, and Shelley has taken steps to reduce over there, because phonics is not as much in our curriculum just laid out in our standards, but it is something we have to deal with. We had full implementation of the ASD2 curriculum maps and support documents for ELA and math last year. Years before, they were developing them, made some difference in our scores the year before, but last year we had full implementation from the beginning of the year, along with coaching support in both ELA and math. Thank you again for that math coach. She is able to support our teachers in math as much as our reading coach supports our ELA teachers. And then Shelley last year already had Mary coming in to do some math PD at the primary level. And she was gracious enough to allow some of my 3rd grade teachers to come over and get the training for kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd so that they could provide intervention to fill some math gaps that we were seeing in 3rd grade. Next one. And that made a big difference in our 3rd grade. It'll come up later on in our presentation of how well our 3rd grade math was. All the things combined led to our growth from average to good. That is not where we want to be, but it's better than we were last year, and we're hoping to go on up to the next level next year. This is how we got there. We had a 6-point game. We got almost 2 of those points in our academic achievement increases. Prepared for success, that again, as Ms. Bryce went over, that is science and social studies. Our science improved a good bit, our social studies did not, and that's where that negative half of a point, or not even a whole half a point. Student growth, we got almost 3 points in student growth. What we did last year, for years and years and years, we have focused just on that bottom, pouring everything on that bottom, all our efforts, everything we could into the bottom 20%. Last year, we still gave a lot of effort into that bottom 20%, but I challenged my teachers, don't lose those bubble kids. You've got to go after those bubble kids. And that's what they did, and that's where that growth came in. In reading, math, and science, we had increases, 4.2% in reading, 7.3% in math, and 5.8% in science. All of those we were above state average in. We did lose ground in social studies. 5th grade is an area of focus for us all year. Some significant things to point out. As I said, Shelley was gracious enough to let our 3rd grade teachers come over so that they would have the tools they needed to fill in some gaps from kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd in math. They poured it on. First quarter of last year was kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd grade. That's all they could teach to get them where they need to go. And then the last 3 quarters, they went after 3rd grade standards. 70.5% of our 3rd graders were meets or exceeds in math. They're almost at my goal of 80%. They increased that 10 percentage points from the year before in that 3rd grade. Our 4th grade ELA, we challenged them. 4th grade is, 3rd grade is working, trying to get them through Read to Succeed, but y'all got to work even harder. And they did that last year using that pacing guide. They dug into what are these standards really meaning, what do we need to do, how do we need to increase rigor. They were 58.7% meets or exceeds, which is not enough for them. They were kind of bummed out by that. They thought it was going to be higher, but that's 14.8% percentage points higher than the 4th grade the year before. That is also 10 percentage points higher than those kids did when they were in 3rd grade. So they got major growth in 4th grade ELA last year. Our 4th grade math was 55.1%. Again, not where they want to be. but 12.4 percentage points higher than the fourth grade was the year before that. So they are growing and setting them up. Again, our area of focus is fifth grade, looking at what is going on. We have been working in third grade, getting them more and more prepared, third grade going to fourth grade. We've been working in fourth grade, getting them more and more prepared going into fifth grade. We've told fifth grade this year, you've got them more prepared than you've ever had them. They are coming to you more ready, and your charge is they need to go out at least as ready as they came in. And so that is what they are working on this year through district-wide PD with Mary Rudsley. She is phenomenal. I've been in classes with her. I've never walked away not coming out knowing something more than I did going in. District-wide PD in close reading and TDA. There's been very much a lack of understanding of how closely related TDA is to reading. It's been looked at as just a writing, just attack it in writing. TDA is a response to reading. It's got to be connected or you're not going to get where you need to be with that. So they have that going on. Our coaches are doing coaching cycles, especially with our fifth grade and our brand new teachers, on those two things, making sure what those teachers are learning in the PD is then being implemented back in the classroom. Our teachers are doing student goal setting, because our kids need to take responsibility for their learning. They need to know where they are, where they need to improve to get to where they're going. So they're doing goal setting with them, conferencing before diagnostic. This is where you were last time. What do you want to work on to improve? Where do you want to get to? Going back afterwards, this is where you were. What do we need to work on? So the kids are well aware of it. 1 year into the PLC implementation, I was fortunate enough to go to Solution Tree this summer. This is, PLC has been thrown around just like PBIS for years. But I had never seen PLC the way I had seen it this year at the Summer Institute. That focus, that intentional focus on learning. What exactly do we want them to learn? All kids, from the lowest med to the highest GT. What do we want them to learn? How are we going to know they learned it? What are we going to do with the ones that didn't? And what do we do with the ones that already knew it before you started teaching? That constant focus on that with our teachers is what we're working on this year with them. Different stages, it's differentiated, because in my grade levels, I have different levels of collaboration. Just like in your classes, you have different levels of ability. But working with every grade level where they are at growing that focus on learning. Not just, I taught it, I hope they got it, but do you know what they needed to learn and that they learned it? So, any questions? Thank you.
You see yours at the top. There you go.
That's okay.
Good evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, I'm just so privileged to have the opportunity to serve my first year here at Honeypath Middle School. Just really excited about a lot of the growth that we've seen. We obviously know there's some areas that we want to continue to work on. I want to go through and talk about those with you. First of all, of course, as Ms. Price has already mentioned, we got a great report, moving up to good, made a significant jump from 39 points on our report card, rated there as average the year before, all the way up to good, just 2 points shy of excellent. Just really proud of the effort that from the teachers that we have there. I know they put a lot of work into that and made a lot of adjustments along the lines. Some of those things we'll talk about in a little bit. Jumped up to 75th out of 323 middle schools on the report card data. So that's a tremendous gain there. You see here, we grew a total of 15 points on the overall report card, jumping to good, of course. Got up to 25%, within the 25% range of all the middle schools in the state of South Carolina. So that's a huge jump for Honeypath Middle School. Really proud of that, of course, and those teachers and staff that got that done. Going through the report card data, this got pulled straight off the website. Where the top bar there might be kind of hard to see. Hanging in there somewhat with math and ELA, but we want to see a lot more there. We ended up being average in that area of achievement, 18.94 points out of 40. And so we know that we can do better than that. We feel like we're getting some things in place that will help us do that. A lot of work still ahead, but we're going to continue to press forward with that.
Same thing here, average in the area of preparing for success rating. But you can see here as a school, that top one there is science. Flat out got it done in science. You know, sixth grade, our sixth grade teacher, Miss Ritland, as well as Miss Taylor, Miss Gregory will share more about that with a little more detail in a little bit, but they got it done, and we were really proud of them. Social studies, of course, didn't quite have the level of jump that we wanted to see, but we still saw some growth there as well. This is really the big thing, you know, that's really encouraging and exciting going forward for us as a school, and it excites me as a first-year principal to come in and say, hey, we can get it done. You know, we've got kids and teachers that are getting it done, and we've got a situation here where, yes, the growth is average, but that's a tremendous jump from last year, you know, jumping up to 21.91 points out of 40, that 54% growth overall, and also down here, growing that lowest performing 20% of our students. You know, and that's really what we're looking at is, you know, how can we push those kids forward, make them competitive with these other students around here in this area, and we believe that they can be and they will be. And so right here, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Gregory and kind of let her unpack the data a little bit more specific to our school.
Okay, so here we have it broken down for you, SC Ready, ELA, and math. So we'll start with math. For sixth grade, you can see we are well above the state average. Our sixth grade math teacher, Ms. Wagner, just completely blew it out with 67% of our students at meets or exceeds. I believe that's the third highest in the county. So we're real happy about that. Our 7th and 8th grade are clearly not where we want them to be. 8th grade still made growth, but again, when you're looking at 25% of your students being at meets or exceeds, we're not happy with that at all, okay? And again, we talked about some of the issues in our 7th grade. 3 of our 4 core teachers were out for extended periods of time, 45 days or more, and all 3 tested subject areas. So that is definitely an area that we were certainly concerned about. Our ELA, we had 48% in the 6th grade, meets or exceed, 40% at 7th grade, and 44% at 8th grade. And then taking a look at the SC Pass for 6th grade science, well above the state average at 66%. 7th grade social studies, which again, that is the last year that we are testing that for now. That will not be tested next year. 60% meets or exceeds. And then 8th grade science at 61%, well above the state average. And then our average score on Algebra 1 and English 1, which we'll take a closer look at, 89.2, well above the state average, and 77.9, again, well above the state average there as well. So some strengths, again, we talked about our 6th grade math, saw a 31% increase, and that's a second-year teacher. Can you share what she says that caused her increase that high?
So Ms. Wagner, in conversation with her, talks about how she pulled her data from her iReady to form small groups to then instruct kids on their level of ability. She pulled out the strands and the specific skills. I had a term last year, I said you need to be skill sergeants. We need to go in there and figure out what specific skills our students can or cannot do, and we need to attack those. I will say Ms. Wagner did that. She was passionate about it. Her lessons revolved around that. When you went in her classroom, she worked closely with Ms. Hall on making those lessons, on pulling those small groups, on working with those kids. And then I'll talk a little bit about it more, but she utilized our lift tremendously, which was a time for remediation. So again, pulling those kids in who are not getting it in class when that is presented to the whole, and given those intense interventions, tier 2 or tier 3, either in a small group or sometimes very explicit instruction, one-on-one. And she did that. And she did that all year. And we can see what she was able to do. And she's doing it again this year. So we expect that to just get better. Our 6th grade science saw a 29% increase with 65% meets or exceeds. Our 6th grade ELA saw a 21% increase over last year's 27%, jumping to 48%. That's Ms. Hayes. It was her first year here with us, not her first year teaching, but her first year here in 6th grade ELA at Honey Path Middle. 8th grade science,
That's Ms. Taylor, who was, again, new to us, but not a new teacher. 61% meets or exceeds, a 14% increase. And then 8th grade ELA, same teacher as last year, saw an 11% increase with 44% meets or exceeds. Taking a look at our Algebra 1 and English 1. So these are our honors students, clearly at the middle school level, taking these tests. The mean score, you can see for algebra is 77.9. Which is a 13.3% increase. We had 2 students not pass our Algebra 1, and they missed it by 2 points, both of them. And they were students that we had conferenced with throughout the year with their parents about that this may not be the best fit for them, they may not be quite ready for Algebra 1, and the parents elected to leave them in there. So those were 2 students that we knew may struggle on that exam. English 1 had a 100% pass rate. In addition, I will say that Ms. Bliss had 93% of her students score a C or higher on that exam. Only 2 students scored a D. So again, looking at those areas of growth, we had growth in ELA, 12%. We had a growth in math of 10%. Science saw 23% growth. Social studies saw 6%. Again, that was with the lengthy absence there. English 1 went to 100% pass rate, up from 98%, and a huge jump in Algebra 1. And that's the same teacher. I think we just did something different, she had a different approach that second year, worked more with our instructional coach than she did the first year, and you saw it go from 68% pass rate to 94%. So the big question is, how did Honey Path Middle School have that overall 15-point jump? I think that it's a combination of a lot of things. One is an increase in rigor of instruction and assessments. Our teachers were teaching. When I went into the classrooms, it wasn't lack of effort. They were working hard. They were trying to engage the middle school students. They were presenting the content the best they knew how, but I think sometimes their assessments were not as rigorous as they needed to be. And so we stepped back with the coaches. We took a look at the assessments. We took a look at the instruction. We took a look at the type of questions that are asked on iReady, because we know that that correlates to the SC Ready test. And they really started working on those, because you can see the correlation between iReady and SC Ready. So we know it's a good predictor of how students are going to do on the SC Ready test. We did individual professional learning based on teachers' needs. So again, if we're trying to differentiate for our students, we started taking that same approach with our teachers. Let's not give this whole kind of PLC approach. Let's individualize. The coaches work with teachers. I work with teachers on figuring out what they need to meet the students' needs that they have. And then the teachers did develop a committee which created a school-wide discipline plan. And let's be clear, that was a discipline plan for their classrooms. It didn't change anything at the school level that's done, but within their classrooms, they wanted from classroom to classroom more consistency as teams with what is done when student does X, Y, or Z. Minor things, nothing major. We're talking about those minor in-class things that can sometimes become chronic, like not having a Chromebook charged. Minor issues, and they developed their own plan and then presented it and implemented it the second part of the school year, and they're still implementing it this year as well.
So, biggest thing as far as kind of going back and looking at some of the areas that we really want to improve and get better in, you can distill it all down to, still looking at average, that word average. We want to shift it to an excellent mindset. We want to continue to push toward excellence. That's our goal. That's something that we want to see no matter what it is we're doing, whether it's keeping the school clean or we're going, into classrooms, the teachers, the students behaving excellently, whatever it may be. And so we're going to continue to work on those things. But as far as how we're going to address the specific weaknesses that you might have seen in our report card, we're going to continue to try to push the rigor in the classrooms, make sure that the teachers are teaching on standard and teaching on pace, and making sure that we are focused in on those standards that will be addressed on SE Ready as well as SE Pass. It's extremely important that time, that instructional time is being protected. And so that within that time, the instructional coaches will continue to work through their coaching cycles that Ms. Bryce has also mentioned. They'll be an instrumental part of continuing to help us identify some potential areas of weaknesses that we need to address, and also giving teachers some tools that they may need to help improve their practice. And then also data-driven decisions as well that will help us continue to protect instructional time, but also determine, how are we using the resources that we have? Are we using them in the best way possible? Some of the initiatives that I have as well that we've already implemented, but some of the things are continuations of what we've had. Of course, we're going to continue to have those individualized coaching cycles, as well as continuing the district PD, but also a big focus on the data as well. One of the things I was one of those principals that got to go to the PLC training. I'll be honest with you, my view of PLC was not necessarily very positive prior to that training, but I saw, that's a good opportunity for us to go in there and actually utilize it in a way that's going to be effectively utilizing the teachers' planning periods. That they're going in there and looking at the data and saying, are the kids getting it? Is there a problem there? Can we go back? Can we address that? What can we do? And so that's something that I really like, and I'm hoping that we'll continue to try to roll that in as we're going throughout the school year, kind of still getting some feelers on exactly how we want that to look. The consistency component as well. It's one of the most important things we can do is be consistent. We want to make sure we have high expectations, but also within our discipline, not providing a whole lot of interruptions to class time. Wanting to make sure that we're protecting that instructional time. That's something that I've tried to be very adamant about as we're going through our school year, that we're making sure if time is going to be lost in the classroom, that it's important, whatever it was that had to take that instructional time was worth it. Morale, of course, we want to make sure our teachers feel good about where they work. Very aware, of course, there's a crisis in terms of getting great teachers. That's just a fact. And so it's important for us to make sure that we're providing a good environment for them to want to work and want to be. And so that's something that's very important for us. Celebrating their success, supporting them, communicating with them, and also consistency as well. Something that I brought in kind of in the quick turnaround coming in over the summer. I wanted to make sure that we had a time that was dedicated to that that individualized instruction that iReady can provide us and actually give us some of that progress monitoring component through our diagnostics, as well as those green lessons that the program provides. And so we built in that power hour within our schedule so that the teachers weren't having to pull away from instructional time to use iReady, but instead we have a designated time for that flip-flops between English and math, which will be tested across all grade levels. And so that will help us to progress monitor throughout the year. The teachers are doing a good job with that. The other side of it, one of the things coming in, talking with Ms. Gregory as well as some of the teachers, she mentioned the lift time that they had. And so wanted to see that being utilized in a way that would be providing those tier 2 and tier 3 interventions, pulling the kids in for skills-based instruction. It's not meant to be a study hall. It's not meant to be just a little extra time that they have in there. It's meant to be, this kid needs this kid needs this specialized, whatever it may be, and they get pulled in by content area throughout the week. Structural changes, just various different things that, that's something I'm coming in. I'm still watching practice, so to speak, seeing those things and just being out in the building and saying, why are we doing it this way? Is there another way we can do it? We talk about these things constantly in administrative meetings, and we try to look for ways. We're continually trying to refine the environment and make it better. Just some simple structural changes like having grade level lunches, having the teachers come and pick the kids up out of gym, just making sure they're being monitored, supervisional things, different things like that, try to cut down on those discipline issues, but also the wasting of instructional time. And so we're going to continue to build off of that progress. Got some ideas on tap, and we're just going to keep working toward those things, keep trying to make it better, and keep trying to make it excellent. Y'all have any questions?
Good evening. I want to start by saying thank you for the opportunity to be at Wright. It's a great place. In the district, it's always been, oh, Wright's different. And I will truly say it is. You just have to experience it. You can't describe how different Wright truly is. And our theme this year, we'll go back, is we're a great team at WES. And I think that is fitting, which Ms. McCall, they decided that at the end. But with the new leader, I think that's very fitting that we are having to reorganize our team at Wright, but so far it's been great. I do want to say thank you, first of all, our 2 new additions, our kindergarten and our first grade, especially Brandy Ashley in kindergarten, would say thank you for our owning. They are no longer getting wet and trying to get those babies in the car when it's pouring down rain. And then Lisa Tavernier would certainly appreciate the new freezer that we had for our cafeteria. But jumping right into the report card data, it's obvious we dropped 2 points. We dropped from good, just enough to put us into the average category. And I will say that is not a true picture of Wright and what Wright really is. I'm going to jump into each part. Academic achievement, we're there. We're excellent. We got a total of 29.63 points out of 40, which is an increase of 1.59 from last year. So the overall increased. Overall in the school, we were 66.7, meet or exceeding, which was again a 3.5 increase. We also increased with math. We had 85.2% met or exceeding, which was another increase of 4.9 from last year. So in academic achievement, we are excellent. Our kids are achieving it right. I do want to add that both ELA and math exceed the state average, and I have the exact percentage later on. Preparing for success, again, which comes from science and social studies, we were still excellent, but as a school, not happy where we fell, because we did decrease in science, which was our 4th grade. We went down 7.4% from last year. We were still 67.6 at met or exceeding. Social studies, we were 82.9. This was our 5th grade, met or exceeding, but it was still a drop. For overall 6.61 points out of 10. However, we still exceed the state average in both of those, in science and social studies. Our student engagement, which is the survey that the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders take, we were excellent in this area as well. I think the biggest thing with that, the first year, those questions were very hard for the students to understand. And they took, Ms. McCall and Mr. Cobb took time with that survey last year, and you can see we got 10 out of 10 points. 64.7 the students were committed, 17, 18, this past year 79.5. And we will continue to take time with that survey so that the students do understand it. All right, the part we are not happy with, because it's 40% of our report card, is the student progress. And as Ms. Bryce said earlier, that's unsatisfactory, and that's not a true picture of Wright. When you look, last year it was below average at 14.07 out of 40 points. This year it was down to 5.13 out of 40 points. All students, 19.7, that's gen ed students, were showing growth, which is not great, but when they are at meets or exceeds, and I would say majority exceeds, it's hard. I'm not making an excuse, but it's hard to go above that. All students this year was 4.8, so we know we need to concentrate, like Ms. Hedrick talked about, those bubble students, meeting the meets to exceeds, because intervention's there. We've got Ms. Fleming doing reading intervention. We have Caroline Boggs doing math intervention, so that piece of it's there. So we've got to focus on keeping the kids in exceeds and moving the meets to exceeds or working on those approaches. And I'll talk a little bit more about what I've planned for this year. Celebrations that we do have it right. ELA and math percentage of students met or exceeds the state average. In ELA, that's kind of hard to see. We're 26.5% higher than the state average. In math, we're 33.8% higher. A huge celebration is our 3rd grade math. We had 97.4% met or exceeding. But on the same point of that, when they move into 4th, we've got to keep them there. I think we had one student that was approaches. 3rd grade writing was another celebration. 65% made a 4 or higher on the TDA portion of their ELA test last year. 4th grade math had 88.2 met or exceeding. In science and social studies, this is what I was referring to a while ago, the state average. We were still in science 18.5% higher and 15.3% in social studies. 5th grade social studies was another area of celebration. 82.9 was met or exceeding it right last year. Our area of focus, of course, is to continue on the writing for 3rd through 5th grade. Wright had the closed reading strategies from Pam and Becca last year for ELA, so they are focusing more on how that closed reading and fits in with the TDA this year. They will be coming to Wright, and they're going to be trained in 2 separate sessions, K2 and 3rd through 5th. 5th grade ELA, just like Ms. Hedrick referred to, is a concern. There's roughly 45%, I believe, was met or exceed. So we will be doing a coaching cycle in that area. A huge focus is moving students in MET category to exceeds and then maintaining that exceeds. One thing that I have done is I have reached out to Powdersville and LaFrance because they have excellent growth and excellent achievement. I want to know what they're doing. I have heard back from Powdersville, so I hope to hear back from LaFrance. Powdersville's focusing on intervention. So that's what they're working on, and they have a certain time, which we have during the day. So we're going to tweak that a little bit. First and second grade math is just continue to focus on that. It's according to iReady, they're both 64 and 65%. We're on grade level. We want to increase that. In my mind, 80% is where we need to be. So what is next? Coaching cycles. Currently, we have a first grade math coaching cycle where Ms. Rice is working with them. Fourth grade ELA, she's not a new teacher. She's a third-year teacher, but she was moved from kindergarten to fourth grade. And we know that growth is so important going in fourth grade. And then she is also part of inclusion, and she's never taught inclusion before. So Megan Rainey is working with her as well, with Polly Gilreath, working through that. Our lift time is we're going to be intentional. We're focusing on moving those MET students to exceeds and maintaining those students in the exceed category. Not necessarily always your intervention students, because that's being covered with our math interventionists and our reading interventionists, but focusing on those bubble kids, those exceeds kids, because sometimes they get left on the wayside, and we want to pull them along as well. All of our teachers have goal meetings with students before the diagnostic. They look at their strengths, their weaknesses, where they are, where they want to be. And they actually have a goal sheet that they do with each student. They do those individually. Professional development, we have ELA, Pam and Becca, and they are also doing observations because their professional development looks a little bit different at Wright. They go in and do observations and give the teacher feedback that day. So we can immediately implement whatever suggestions they have. And of course, Mary Ruzka with our math. We are focusing on the Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3, the progress monitoring piece, so that we have that data-driven instruction, so that we know where their weaknesses are and meet them where they are, or where their strengths are, and move past that and push them even farther. Math intervention is new to us this year. Right now, we are using the iReady profile groups to help tier that instruction where it needs to be. We have looked into an intervention program. They're giving us a free trial, so we're going to talk with that with Ms. Rice and see how that Bridges intervention program will look. What's happening new this year, of course, with me being new, one of the things on the survey from parents was lack of positive communication. Not bad, but it was only 28 parents took the survey, but when you had 7 that kind of noted that, you thought, something needs to be done. So I initiated grandparents breakfast, and I'm going to add muffins for mom and donuts for dad, just to get those parents in there. And I will say the grandparents they loved it. They loved being in there, and some of them had to come 2 or 3 times. Open house parent workshops, instead of just an open house, just to go and talk to the teachers, teachers presented something that was very helpful for their students and their parents all year. For example, Anna Bannister, she was Casey, focused on letter sounds, because a lot of parents will add extra to the sound. Well, my kid knows it, and that's something that's going to help her with that phonics all year. And then weekly life principles and the 8 expectations from living. I came from Honeypath and Great Expectations, and I know what it can do. And one thing, when I met with the faculty for the first time, they said there was just lack of consistency of expectations. Not behavior concerns, just lack of expectations in PE versus the hallway versus 3rd grade. So we adopted those. They decided they wanted to do that, and we're seeing great gains with that already. We're going to continue with the balanced reading, balanced literacy, and the closed reading, and tying that in with the TDA, guided math, of course the coaching cycles, and then enrichment with Ms. Davis, which is media specialist, and or Ms. Dagny. They're doing various, they do that at least once a month, some type of project that goes with their standards, and they do, like Ms. Dagny was there last week, in 2nd grade did green screen. Ms. Davis did green screen meteorologist reports with 5th grade. So that's some of the things that we're doing at Wright. And so we're looking forward to a great year. Again, I'm excited to be there. It's a great school. Does anybody have any questions?
That's good. Yes, sir. Next item is work policy GBL. Mr. Hall is going to come up here and have some questions about this policy. I think he's going to provide us some update.
Dr. Rosenberger asked me to go over and look at our leave policy, in particular our requirements or what it says on our personal leave in our policy. This is our current policy. Just to kind of highlight a few things on it. Of course, employees can take leave in several different areas. Personal illness in the immediate family, death, and for personal reasons. Leave cannot be taken for personal and illness in the family if they're in the first 5 days of school, the last 5 days, any staff development day, or a day before a district holiday. As far as use of consecutive personal days, our policy says if an employee requests to take more than 3, okay, consecutive personal days, the employee must have the request written to the principal. The principal then will consider the request, and if they approve, then forward it to the superintendent. So I compared our leave policy to surrounding districts, and it varies. It varies. Of course, as a 190-day employee, you have 12 annual leave. So our policy, you have these 12 annual leave, and we have a maximum of 2 consecutive days that you can take without getting it approved. In the past, they have not been approved, okay? And that's consisted varies a little bit with surrounding districts. In Anderson 1, they have 12 annual days. They really have no limit on the number of consecutive personal days you can take. It says in their policy that it has to be approved, but I've talked to District 1 and it's kind of rubber stamped. If you want to take them, you can take them. District 3 is part of their annual day. You can take a maximum of 2 consecutive days except for extreme emergencies. So very similar to ours. District 4 is a little different in the fact that they break their annual leave into, in year 1 or 2, if you're first or second year, you have 3 personal days, and the rest of that would leave 9 annual for sick days. In Anderson 4, if you've been in the District 3 or more, you have 5 personal days. And there are no limits to when you can take them or how, if you need to take them consecutively, you can. District 5 is very similar to 4, except in year 1 to 5, you get 2 days. Year 6 or more, you get 3 days. But again, you could take those 3 if I'm my 6th year in District 5, I could take all 3 consecutive days without any punishment or cutting pay. Oconee is part of their 12, and you can use 3 except for extenuating circumstances. In Pickens, it's part of your 12, maximum of 3, except, I don't want this policy, once every 3 years, you can take as many as you want. Okay, I don't know who in the world wants to keep that up with that, but you can do that. Every 3 years, you can take more than 3. Greenville County, again, they break theirs out, and they get 4 personal days, and you can take 4 in a row if you want to take them. Abbeville, you get 2 per year, and you can accumulate up to 10. Okay, so you can get 10, you can bank, but you can only take 2 in a row. In Greenwood 50, which is in Greenwood, they have 4 per year, and you can take all 4 together. Okay. So the questions comes then, if you request 3 personal days and the principal doesn't approve it, what happens to that 3rd day? Okay. It's been our practice to dock pay, full pay for that 3rd day. Okay. So I kind of compared that to last year. What does that mean? Okay. So last year we had 18 employees to get docked, a total of 25 days. Okay. So some would be docked 1 day, some are docked 2 or 3 days. This year, we've already had 7 employees to have been docked, a total of 15 days. So we're 9 weeks in, and we're well on pace to surpass our 25 days from last year. Not sure exactly the reason why. Okay, so I don't bring any recommendations. This is just information for you guys. Do you have any questions?
It's very good information. Thank you for
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCall.
Ms. Cooley, if I may, the board has several options, and we can bring a recommendation to the board the next time, we can leave it alone. I think the question comes, what about if we don't, because our policy doesn't say dock in 2 days, but if we don't approve more than 2 days, what happens to that third, fourth, and fifth day? And so if it needs to have some definition afterwards, or leave it be, just, that's just up to the board how they want to address the policy. And they will review, or whoever else will bring a recommendation in the next meeting, but that's just any direction.
It was a pleasure of the board. Madam Chairman. Yes, ma'am. I do like the consideration for extreme emergencies to be really frank. If somebody wants to go Christmas shopping or go to Disney World, to me that is not a justification for personal days not being docked. But if you have somebody in the family in intensive care and you're, kind of on the line, or you can live or die, I do think that there needs to be some consideration for that.
Can I just throw one thing out there? Because
Yes, sir.
I also like that in regard to, we have an employee that has requested some time off to go see their son graduate from the Air Force. And it's more than 2 days. And it's hard for me to say you can't do that without being docked. So yeah, I would like, for what it's worth.
Patriotic service, I think we need to acknowledge.
Would it be visible to select committee to come up with what we'd like to present to the board?
Well, the principal already has, it's up to the principal to approve the discipline, right?
Correct.
So I would think it would be left to each individual principal, to approve any or all of it. As, I know the policy's been for years to dock pay after 2 days.
No, it's not a policy.
Practice. But if that's the practice, then it needs to be in the policy that it is principals, it's up to the principal to decide. And if he says, you're going to Disney World, 2 days is good, docking you pay for the third one. So, but that's not up for a motion
No.
next meeting.
And I think that's fine, we'll be glad to put together a committee and bring something to the board.
I don't have a problem with that, but I would think there needs to be some guidelines. I mean, so at least the principal would have some guidelines.
From personnel, from us.
Well, and that probably is what precipitated the problem, because this principal says you can go to Disney World, this principal says you cannot go to that Air Force graduation. And that does cause a problem. But let us put together something we will bring, we wanted to hear the board have to say.
It just needs to be in policy either way, just so you can't read it 2 ways.
Officers at board meeting, that was a continuation of the last meeting. I don't know if there needs to be one more discussion, or at least that would be part of your vote at the end of this superintendent's report.
I just going to make the statement that at the September 9th board meeting, Mr. Biggs brought up for discussion the topic of officers at board meetings. After discussion, I made a motion and was told that it could be given as a suggestion but not as a motion. So after a discussion with the superintendent and as per the discussion from the last meeting, tonight I want to make the following motion, that our board chair be allowed to use her discretion in determining if officers are needed for any given board meeting, the number of officers that will be needed, and the agency to be used in securing the officers. I'd like to make that in the form of a motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion. I still would like for us to consider the school resource officers. I mean, they're our people, and I think if they can protect our students and protect our teachers and protect our schools, then certainly they ought to be able to protect us. And we're just taking care of our
vote is just that it's the board chairman's discretion, not what you have to use.
That's correct.
Okay.
We have a motion, we have a second, we have a discussion. All in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. All opposed, right hand.
I still think we do. I'd like to change it to resource officers.
So are you amending the motion?
I would like to amend the motion to include resource officers.
I'll second that.
I'd like to discuss that because I observed a problem with the school resource officers not forcefully enforcing school rules at VHP auditorium. I really think that the sheriff's department is not a district employee, so they're more forceful at doing what is needed.
Two of the sheriff's officers are district employees.
Well, we have sheriff's deputies that are district employees. And
Well, to be honest, whenever we contacted them, we contacted the BHP officer, and he was the one that put together who was here. So that's what was done the last times. All the other times, that's what we contacted Josh, and he put together the team.
And I understand that because he's a county deputy, so he's gonna look at county deputies if you contact him. My suggestion is school resource officers, because they work in our schools, I just think we want to give them
The extra.
priority, personally.
Now,
There was a motion, there was a second.
all in favor of the motion that Mr. Ennis made, please raise your right hand. All opposed? The motion passes with, Mr. Ennis' motion passes with the contacting school resource officers. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Thank you for discussion.
Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is videotaping board.
We talked about it a little bit down the meeting. You are being videotaped right now. Courtesy of Mr. Sam Gilmer, so that is available. It will be available through Ms. McDowell. If someone wanted to contact her, they would be able to get the information from that, but it's available for our board as well, too.
I have a question. Some of the videotaping that has been done, it was not a complete video. There were problems with it. Some elements were not included. And that was a little bit of a problem in going back and reviewing. Is this going to be done at a professional level where we won't have, you know, the frizzy screen like we did at one point? And there was one parent who made comments, and her participation section, it was cut off before she began speaking, and it started back after she finished.
That was not done by anybody on our staff at all. The last meeting we had was done by Sam, and this was the same way. I believe it was Ms. McDowell's watched as well. It's very clear. There was a little bit that had to do part one and part two. Is that going to be the same still, or?
We're trying to resolve that.
But regardless, it is picked up exactly where it left off. There is nothing deleted from there at all. But this is only the second time that our staff will be using that.
All right, thank you.
And then the last thing is the certification of delegates for the 2019 Delegate Assembly in December. At this time, usually we have two people that will represent. One will be the vote, and the other will be the alternate. I know Ms. Knight and Dr. Barnes have both indicated they are willing to go. I'll turn that back over to Ms. Cooley if there's anybody else.
All right, thank you. We have two people that want to serve as a delegate at the December single meeting. Anyone else? All right, we will have Mrs. Knight, Dr. Barnes, attending represent District 2. Thank you.
And Ms. Cooley, that completes the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. next item on the agenda is executive session. We will go into executive session, and a motion that we're going to executive session of second, please. Someone, all in favor, please say, sorry. All right, we will go on into executive session. We have these items, as listed, that we will be discussing: personnel recommendations, legal matters, contractual issue, the supervisor contract, the evaluation instrument. So we will now go into executive session. Does anyone like to take a break? 2 minutes break?